Next, we have consideration of a request from Eric Christou, Esquire, for the law office of Rudin McCluskey on behalf of the Palm Beach Inn. That Article 3, alcoholic beverages of Chapter 14, businesses at Section 14-56 of the code, the Town Code of Ordinances, be amended in order to allow an establishment currently holding a license from the state to remain open to serve alcoholic beverages until 2 o'clock on Friday and Saturday nights. So this is on the agenda, and the attorney, I believe, is present, and I believe the applicant is present. So if the council would like to move ahead and listen to the attorney, we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Mayor, is that 5 minutes?
No, he gets as much as he wants. Not on agendas.
I believe before an agenda item, he's going to move forward with his presentation. We should probably listen to it.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the council, my name is Eric Christou. I am here on behalf of the Palm Beach Oceanfront Inn tonight. I just want to make sure we have submitted materials in support of this application. They included August 17, 2010 letter together with an accompanying appendix, which was comprised of numerous tab materials. Did the council members able to receive that?
Yes.
Yes.
We've made it a part of the record as well, submitted to the clerk through town council. The request is as the mayor said, is to permit sale of alcoholic beverages at the inn until 2 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday. The 2 a.m. time frame that we're asking for, after we looked into this matter, my client did, is very consistent with ordinances in other municipalities throughout the county, in particular the towns of Manalapan, Montana, and Lake Worth allow those types of sales in similar establishments. In fact, even later, the earliest would be 2 a.m. But many of them allow it even on weekdays. We're looking only to do that on Saturdays and Sundays.
Friday and Saturday, it says on here.
I'm sorry, you're right. It's Friday and Saturday. Obviously, it's to 2 a.m. It's going to be for Friday night and Saturday night going into the morning, not expiring at 12 a.m. going into the morning hours. So hopefully that was clear. One of the important, maybe one of the most important grounds supporting this application is the competing businesses, the other establishments with which my client competes, have this ability. And of course, in these challenging economic times, any detriment to competition with one's competitors is difficult. And the client believes in order to remain competitive, this is important to his business going forward. It's not expected, if you all, the council's had a chance to review the existing ordinance 1456, has some comment about the town manager having some discretion in this regard, and some of the considerations that are set forth in that statute or that ordinance are whether it's going to require any additional town resources or personnel, and we don't believe it would in this instance. We would not expect any additional town personnel or resources to be required should this request be granted. The applicant has never before made a request such as this. The Palm Beach Oceanfront Inn has not been the subject of any type of legitimate complaints or incidents, has never been cited for any infractions or other issues with respect to the sale of liquor at its establishment. It is a licensed facility. Indeed, as we made clear in our materials, the only complaints we've ever been made aware of with respect to operations at the inn have been generated by council members Jordan and Lillybeck, or at their behest. And none of those complaints, to our knowledge, have ever been found to be meritorious. The complaints I just mentioned that have been made by council members Jordan and Lillybeck are one of the reasons, as was pointed out in our submitted materials, that we are requesting, and in fact strongly requesting, that these two council members not vote on the matter. I think the reasons are obvious. It would be fundamentally unfair to have two council members who recently and repeatedly have made direct complaints about the use of this establishment to now be voting on a matter pertaining to the use of this establishment. Fundamental fairness would suggest and really mandate that they not be permitted or should disqualify themselves from voting on a matter so directly related to matters that they have raised on a regular basis. As we set forth in our materials, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, the additional grounds supporting the request that these two council members not vote on the matter are set forth in some of the other materials we submitted. And they go to the idea that these complaints about the use of the hotel have been so repeated, so frequent, and so pervasive that it really required my client to do something about it. And that something was to bring these continued systematic and unfounded complaints to the attention of the authorities in the form of a criminal complaint brought to the attention of the police department. And our understanding is that matter is under review by the police chief. So the idea that there is a pending complaint about these complaints even further demonstrates the inappropriateness and fundamental unfairness of those two council members voting on an issue relating directly to the use. And again, those materials are set forth in tabs 2 through 8 of the appendix that we've submitted in support of our moving papers. Additionally, our client is in a current dispute with the building where Ms. Jordan and Mrs. Lillybeck reside. And the result of that dispute could have a direct economic impact on one or both of those council members. Further, adding additional grounds to the idea that those two council members should not vote on this measure. The other grounds for disqualification that we set forth in our moving papers are those articulated at the last council meeting and are set forth in detail in our July 26, 2010 letter, which is also made a part of the papers we've submitted here tonight. And it's at tab 2 of the appendix we submitted. So we believe, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, there are very good grounds to support this, what we would consider a fairly modest extension of the existing time usage for this establishment. While your town ordinance contemplates such an enlargement, it requires some type of ongoing continuous request of the town manager, which it doesn't really seem to have any particular process for, and would require sort of doing this almost on a daily or weekly basis, which doesn't really address the need of my client. So apparently we have not heard anything formal in response from the town manager on this matter, but we presume that it's on the agenda, and you certainly have the ability to extend this, and we would respectfully request that you consider and grant the extension of the 2 a.m. closing for the Palm Beach Oceanfront Inn. Since I might not have another chance to comment, I would just, while I'm up here, just to save time, I would note, for the record, it appears that on your agenda later on this evening, there's a second reading of ordinance 256 and 257 that appears to be a tab 4 of the council's materials. We would just reaffirm our earlier objections that we made at the last council meeting to the participation of council members Jordan and Lillybeck as to the second reading for the same grounds we earlier articulated. And that's all I have. If anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to try and answer.
The intent of the extension, is that purely tied to revenue or in terms of expanding the hours? Or?
Well, I think it's not entirely tied to revenue, no. It's really tied to satisfying our clientele. Our clientele comes to the establishment to enjoy themselves. It's obviously most of the time a vacation atmosphere. I'm sure everybody on the council is engaged in those types of vacations. You sometimes want to stay up a little later and enjoy oneself. Certainly consistent with every other hotel in town, within a matter of yards and feet of this establishment. So it's not just a revenue-based situation, Councilmember Merbler. It's really, there's been an indicated desire and need from the part of the establishment's clients' clientele, and it would fulfill that need.
I was just curious. I just recently read how Calera's recently kind of gone away from its dinner format into more of a, I guess you could say, kind of an after-hours club or something to that effect, where they were trying to attract. And I don't know. I don't know if theirs was purely motivated by revenue. I suspect everyone's looking for a lift in an economy that may not be producing the desired results.
Don't take my comments to mean the revenue.
Sure, no. Well, I know that's a component, sure.
It's a component, and the way you're asking, is it only about revenue? It's not only about revenue. Obviously, the competitive nature of it at some point comes down to revenue, but you know, it's not certainly not an unusual thing to have bars and restaurants on the weekends stay open a little bit later. And when your competition is able to do that, you're not. You're going to suffer.
Thank you.
I think comparing to other establishments, particularly like Calero's or Ritz-Carlton, they're more away from people who have residents. Calero's is in a shopping mall, the Ritz-Carlton is mostly enclosed, whereas the inn would be more of an open area on top of two residential buildings. And rowdyism from 12 to 2 is much more prevalent than from 10 to 12. And I just feel it could be an imposition to have something like that with loud music, dancing or whatever. And again, you can't compare the different areas with the inn.
Vice Mayor Clayman, the only thing I would say in response to your statements are, well, let me say twofold. One is, I don't know that there's any indication to support your belief that it is going to be a problem, because for years it hasn't been. And if we need to explore further the existence of any complaints, and if your staff needs to look into the historical aspects of complaints up until 11:59 or 12 a.m., I would encourage you to do so. Because to take the leap that automatically on 2 days a week for an additional 2 hours, all of a sudden you're going to have a problem when you haven't been having a problem up until midnight, I think is a leap with all due respect. You're expecting a problem that might not happen.
I'm not expecting, this is a very common